Hello and welcome to O&M. My name's Steven Zeiner. Let's just go ahead and dive right into this. So on Friday, June 9th, Stronghold Digital Mining tweeted, and let's go ahead and pull up that tweet. It should be on the screen right now. And it literally says from @CoinDesk. So this is Stronghold citing an article from CoinDesk. Quote, according to data compiled by Zhao, Stronghold Digital Mining, Cypher Mining, and Riot platforms have the lowest costs of production, with Stronghold at $8,200, Cypher at $8,600, and Riot at $10,400 per Bitcoin in the first quarter. End quote. So as I quickly replied, or at least I replied in a somewhat rapid manner, I'm just thrilled that Stronghold Digital Mining is being mentioned in the same sentence as a company like Riot, which by some estimations is a so-called apex predator within the Bitcoin mining ecosystem. So beyond the headline, right, beyond the quote, let's dig into this a little bit. So I'm not entirely sure how Zhao calculated these numbers. And the best data that I have to work with is the what I believe, and I'm going to get this citation very accurate here. So this is the May 11th, 2023 press release, which is called Stronghold Digital Mining Reports First Quarter 2023 Results and Provides Operational Update. And this should be on the screen as well. So if we were to drift down to one of the bullet points in this press release, it says the following. I'm gonna just go ahead and read this verbatim. Achieved objective of $45 to $50 per megawatt hour net cost of power in March 2023, and expects that the net cost of power will average between $40 and $50 per megawatt hour over the course of 2023, which the company estimates corresponds to a cost per Bitcoin of approximately $10,000 to $14,000, assuming latest generation miners and a network hash rate of 320 exahash a second. So why am I bringing this up? Well, I think the goal for O&M is to really attempt to figure out what's actually going on. That's not to say that I'm not thrilled that Zhao might have calculated a number that's different from what we, or at least the range which we as a company put out there in early May. To the extent that we're closer to $8,200 some odd dollars per coin, that's awesome. Okay, and there's certainly there's nothing to complain about. I'm thrilled. I'm ecstatic that we're getting this type of positive press. Full stop. Okay. Now, it's unclear to me how Zhao calculated that number. I've not necessarily attempted to find the report. I mean, I certainly read the CoinDesk article, but I have not really strived too aggressively here to find the original report written by Zhao, wherein presumably there's some sort of mathematical breakdown of how $8,200 was arrived at, right? And this is with regard to the first quarter of 2023. The numbers I do have, however, that come straight from Stronghold Digital Mining, as referenced in the May 11th, 2023 press release, cite a range of $10,000 to $14,000, assuming latest generation miners, which by that I would presume that means something along the lines of, say, like MicroBT, What's Miner M50 style machines, which are quite efficient, and a network hash rate of about 320 exahash a second. Listen, 10,000 to 14,000, I think, is phenomenal, okay? So this isn't an effort to quibble with the numbers. That said, I think it's important, right, as co-owners of the business, as shareholders of Stronghold Digital Mining, that we be operationally aware of the numbers that we're talking about as a company versus the numbers that Zhao, I get presumably an independent research firm, right? An individual who I guess did this research. If I read that correctly, I'm not sure if it's a company, an individual, but and you know what? I respect their conclusion of 8,200. Now, from my perspective, I'm probably going to lean a bit more towards our own in-house projection of about 10,000 to 14,000. Hey, to the extent we meet or beat that, fantastic. But I'm reluctant to simply jump out ahead and sort of start thinking and promulgating an $8,200 number as our baseline number, simply because it's not clear to me that we are perhaps there yet. I mean, and again, I'm not discounting the fact that maybe we somehow are. That said, as of May 11th, we seem to be talking more about numbers that were between 10,000 and 14,000, with the various caveats that I mentioned. Okay, so that's the first item. Now, in response to that a particular tweet, and I responded to it as well in a very favorable way, but our friend Brian, he had several bullet points, and I think these are very thoughtful and thought-provoking bullet points. Now, in the interest of time, I'm going to sort of zoom in, excuse me, on one of the bullet points, and it asks the question, and I'm sort of paraphrasing a little bit. Why did Stronghold Digital Mining lose money in Q1? Pardon me. And how do we plan to profit, right, in the future, in our outlook? So let's pull up the next slide here. Let me just go ahead and take a sip of water momentarily. Okay, so looking at this slide, we basically see, and I just want to make sure that I myself am looking at exactly what's on the screen here. Okay, so we see towards the top total operating revenues of $17,266,215. That is what we've reported for total operational revenue for Q1 2023. Now, when we look at our, what I like to call our core, sort of like core mission critical operating expenses, and that's going to be fuel, which for Q1 was $7,414,014. Operations and maintenance, which was $8,440,923. And finally, general and administrative, which was $8,468,755. To keep the math simple, let's kind of average fuel, operations and maintenance, general administrative. Let's call that $24 million. Okay. When you have total operating revenues of about 17.2 million, and then you have core operational expenses of about 24 million, that becomes a challenge, right? That becomes a problem. Let me pull up my calculator and let's do a little bit of math here. So let's take 24 million, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and divide 24 million by 90 days. That comes out to basically $266,666. Let's just round that up to $267,000. So we've got $267,000 per day of core operational expenses based on our Q1 2023 results. Now, when we divide 267,000 by 24 hours in a day, that comes out to $11,125 in operating expenses, right? In core operational expenses per hour. Furthermore, if we were to divide $11,125, and to kind of attempt to make this as much of an apples to apples comparison as possible, we have 85 megawatts of nameplate capacity at Scrubgrass, 80 megawatts of nameplate capacity at Panther Creek. That's a total of 165 megawatts of nameplate capacity. Let's go ahead and divide $11,125 by 165. That basically produces the equivalent of, and you tell me if my math is right here, of about 67.42, right? So $67.42 in megawatt hours, right? So from a core operational expense perspective, right, we've got what appears to be around 60, let's just call it $67, right? And again, that's translated into megawatt hours, right, for the sake of this example. So, we need grid prices to basically be at around 67 to break even based upon the core operational expenses that I referenced before. And we're just kind of rounding it to 24 million. Now, when it comes to Bitcoin priced in dollars per megawatt hour, the situation changes ever so slightly, because bear in mind, we have data centers that are about, let's say 70 megawatts, right? Now that means 70 megawatts at Scrubgrass, 70 megawatts at Panther Creek. For argument's sake, okay, and we can, certainly do an even deeper dive into these numbers, but let's just say, for the sake of this, relatively short conversation, that we've got about 140 megawatts of Bitcoin mining capacity, right? In terms of like the amount of electricity we can pour into Bitcoin mining is, when fully maxed out with our current data centers, let's call that about 140 megawatts, okay? So when we take, and let's just jot down 67.42, that's for electricity. If we go ahead then and take the 11,125, divide that by 140, suddenly we're looking at 79.46. So based on my back of the napkin, so to speak, math, it would appear as if though we really need Bitcoin priced in dollars per megawatt hour of about, let's just call it $79 in order to cover our core operational expenses. So, I mean, I'm certainly not a spokesperson for Stronghold Digital Mining, and so what I'm attempting to do though is sort of draw out some detail that could perhaps help address, I think, the very valid and thought-provoking question that Brian's asking, right? Why did we have a loss, right, in Q1 2023? And by loss, let's just call it adjusted EBITDA, right? We did have a negative adjusted EBITDA number. So, in very, I think, very sort of, the simple answer is, hey, revenue was about 17.2 million, and we know that we have core operational expenses of, let's just call it around 24 million. So that's a challenge. Why was our operating revenue so low? So grid prices were depressed, and in early Q1 2023, Bitcoin itself was still depressed. So we don't have any control over grid prices. We don't have any control over Bitcoin prices, nor do we have control over the network hash rate. So that places us in a bit of a challenging position. So why are we doing at the market offerings? Why are we attempting to maybe raise some strategic cash here and there? I think what we just described is very well the reason why. At least that's my assumption, right? We're looking for ways to sort of tide ourselves over until our core input variables improve, right? Be it grid prices, or alternatively, be it Bitcoin priced in dollars per megawatt hour. So hopefully that provides a little bit more context and color as to what's kind of going on here. because yeah, I mean, we definitely will be in much better shape to the extent we have grid prices that can go up, right, in price, or alternatively Bitcoin priced in dollars per megawatt that goes up, and crucially that we have the Bitcoin mining infrastructure in place to really take advantage of that to the fullest extent possible. And that's something else that wasn't around in Q1 2023. We're working very expeditiously, I believe, right, to reach our capacity, which I believe might be closer to 4.2 exahash a second versus the projected 4. And I'll leave the reason I say that for another, sort of another O&M episode, so to speak. But right now, we are really close to 3.6. I'm going to officially call it 3.6 as of June 15th, because the final 200 petahash from the Canaan deal is scheduled to be installed on or before June 15th. Truth is, I think it's already installed. But hey, to try to, to keep things as clear cut as possible, we'll update the dashboard on June 15th. So, okay, we really got into the weeds here, but that's the goal of O&M. And hopefully this provides a bit more context as to, what's going on with regard to our operational revenues and operational expenses, and why it's so important, right, that we keep charging forward towards full capacity data centers so that we can leverage every single megawatt that we can to try to make the economics of this business work. Okay, I'll see you in the next episode.